let me see here. So some things that I want to cover today. I know most of you are first, second year students, maybe younger. Any high schoolers in the group here? Maybe a few. So that being said, if anything is confusing throughout our little time together this morning, or if you have questions, just write them in the chat. I'll try and catch them, or jump off your microphone and ask. I'm open to keeping this kind of a dialogue. So, but some of the things I want to talk about, the basics of the job search, how to find the jobs, where to start looking for the jobs, and how to be resourceful in doing that. And then some communication etiquette. And we're all fairly familiar with the virtual format. But when we're in a professional or an interview setting, we want to make sure we have all of our I's dotted and our T's crossed for best impact and best representation of ourselves. And then some tips and tricks about conversation, whether it's an open conversation with a potential employer or with somebody in the design industry that you're trying to learn from. Some tips there we'll go over. And then how to do some goal planning and make sure you get what you want out of this, because at the end of the day, you're in school for a reason. You want to join the profession, and it'd be remiss not to get what you actually want out of it. So we'll talk about that too. But a little bit about myself, as Professor Dudek mentioned, sorry, I've got a dog here, but class of 2015, feels like forever ago, that I finished school, and I finished in interior design and a little bit of study in gerontology in the gerontology program. When I was looking for an internship, I was fascinated by the furniture world and spent 2 summers working for 2 different furniture dealers in Kansas City, where I'm from, a small dealer and a large dealer, and kind of did a variety of roles kind of through those internships. A little bit of marketing for the smaller dealership, as they were kind of getting their feet on the ground. And then the second dealership, the large dealership I worked for, is actually my current employer, Scott Rice. And so I worked on their design team as an intern. So then when I graduated, wanted to join more of a traditional architecture and design firm. So joined that firm, a small firm in Kansas City, and I ended up wearing many hats there as well. So I ended up, when the design workflow was lower, ended up doing some marketing and some business development there as well. And for those of you who aren't familiar with that term, maybe business development is essentially bringing business to the organization through a variety of pathways and channels, whether it be marketing or networking in the community, et cetera, et cetera. And that kind of spurred, as Professor Dudek said, my true love, which is really advocating for the design profession. And so my career since then, since working at the firm, has navigated more into that business development and sales trajectory. So it's just something to keep in mind. I think it's helpful for you guys to see a variety of alumni roles, and the industry is wider than you may realize while you're in school. So some of the things that I get to do in the type of role that I'm in now is connecting with others through a lot of professional organizations, a lot of community stakeholder groups, and community entities. I bring a kind of a different perspective to project opportunities or project pursuit opportunities, as my employer looks to build business. and help advise them on trends in the industry, or maybe inside knowledge on what those project partners might be bringing to the table as well, what the contractor and end user might be wanting to see from the design output or the design intent. And I mentioned community engagement as well. So kind of kicking this off, I had my own kind of interesting path. If you would have asked me in school if I would ever be in sales, I would have laughed, because I always viewed myself as a creative, and I thought that was my lane and my one thing I was going to do. But the world is very broad, and there's so many different directions you can take a design career. So keeping that in mind, I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about the basics of starting a job search, whether you're in a pandemic or not. There's kind of two ways to look at this. So some of you may have started a process and looking for an internship or an opportunity already. Others may have not, but I kind of see it in two ball fields, really. You're talking about active pursuits and passive pursuits. And what I mean by that is active pursuits are, you're in the market for a job, you need an opportunity. You're actively working with your network and actively searching for jobs and opportunities that may exist. A more passive approach would be maybe if you're not so much in a hurry, or maybe if you're just open to kind of whatever comes your way. That might be where you look at some things like job boards, like ZipRecruiter or Indeed or something like that, that really is meant for you to kind of put your stuff out in the world, and the world will call when they're ready. I tend to gravitate towards the active job hunting. If you're really going to get a career that motivates you, inspires you, and gets you up out of bed every day, you really want to be out in front of those opportunities, putting your best foot forward and not waiting for, like I said, for the world to call you. So two kind of ways to look at that. You can use technology as a resource in active job pursuits. I like to recommend that whether you're familiar with employers in the market or not, that you do some research. A good way to do that research is to start with some of those professional organizations, IIDA, AIA, all of those regional groups have websites that list firms, typically by what types of projects they work on. That's a good place to start. Another way, if you already have some employers that you're looking at or some markets, maybe Chicago, Dallas, Kansas City, start fine-tuning your searches in those markets, and then start following those companies, those employers on their social media pages. A lot of employers may not use those job boards that your resume is sitting waiting for somebody to call. So it's in your best interest to really make that target list of your top 10 employers that you're looking for. Obviously, don't keep yourself pigeonholed to those employers. There's going to be many others like those employers that you hadn't heard of before that will come to fruition for you. But that's a good place to start. So make sure you're following those companies on social media, Facebook, Instagram, whatever you use the most, whatever you're going to be in front of. And then LinkedIn. I'll talk about this a little bit going through our time, but LinkedIn is a good place to start in your job search. You have to have a LinkedIn profile to use LinkedIn. So whether you have one or not, it's something to consider setting up. And I want to remind you guys that it is a social media platform. It's a communication tool. It is not a job board, but it does offer job postings and job opportunities. The beauty of LinkedIn is that the way it's designed, it supports its users by how they are engaged with the platform. So whereas you might put a resume on Indeed and you might not be the most qualified for the job or the most available or something, you may not rank as high in that list of applicants to that employer. On LinkedIn, if you're engaged on LinkedIn, if you have a profile, if you're liking and sharing and communicating content with the companies or the people or the organizations that you're following on LinkedIn, you may show up a little higher in that applicant search for the job postings that you apply for through LinkedIn. You may also come up in employers' searches. So if they don't have a job posting out there, but they're looking and keeping an eye on the market for talent, they may be searching interior designer or interior design student. So you want to make sure you have some of those keywords in your profile. We'll talk about that a little bit more. Another way to look at this active job searching is networking. And it's kind of a scary word. I know there's going to be some other presentations on this topic, so I hope you attend those today. But networking is not scary. Networking is just asking questions of the people that you know, whether it's your parents' friends, your teachers, your colleagues, your sorority sisters, whoever it may be. Make sure they know what you're studying and what your interests are, and ask questions. I'm really looking forward to this summer. I'm gonna, I'm gonna hopefully look for an internship, and I want to find, an internship at an architecture firm in Kansas City. You never know who says, "Oh, my neighbor works for HOK," or, those are kinds of ways to start building your confidence in sharing with others what you do and what your interests are. That's going to carry you through your professional career. So don't be afraid to ask. If you assume they already know, maybe they don't. Share it again, ask again, and then reach out. If in your search you come across somebody on LinkedIn or you get connected with someone, don't stall on that opportunity. Reach out and ask questions. Ask about their career trajectory and, where you might be able to get connected to find some help navigating the job market. So I'm going to use my dear boss actually as an example of a LinkedIn profile because I think it's very helpful. I want to make sure that when you do set up, your digital presence on LinkedIn, that's, like I mentioned, where employers are going to be searching for students and prospective talent. That's where they may be posting opportunities, they may not. But being at the forefront of that, of their searches is critical. One way to do that, make sure you, like on a resume, make sure you have a brief summary at the top of your page. Make sure your tagline is your current position, either interior design student at Kansas State University, or, an active tagline like interior design student at KSU looking for internship. You can be direct. Like I mentioned before, it is a communication tool. So of the platforms that you use, get familiar with it. Make it something you log into once a week and like, comment, share, share pictures of your progress work in your studios. Use your hashtags, use your build, you got to build your content on your profile so that you rise in the algorithms of LinkedIn and make a good impression. It's helpful to also share other accomplishments too that may not be related to your job search. If you recently won an award or did some community service or held a position at another student group. Those are things to share about, not just list on your page in a static way, but to continue to share about, to create a little bit more holistic view of you. Employers want to know what you're interested in and what makes you you. So that's something to consider as well if you've got pictures on your phone that are worth sharing from some of those other opportunities and engagements. That's good to share. It can be as candid as it needs to be. It doesn't need to be professional. Just share your interests and don't overthink it. Next, I want to kind of talk about speaking and writing professionally when you're in the job market. I always opt to pick up the phone if there's a phone number available. It will reach somebody and be much more memorable than an email. And the benefit of a phone call is that sometimes you will get a voicemail and you can express what you want to say more succinctly. But odds are you may get not the right person on the other end of the line. You may get the front desk. You may, get whoever's in the office these days. A lot of offices are taking shifts on who's answering the phones, but just be direct with what you're looking for. I'm curious if, I'm curious if you guys are hiring and I'm, an upcoming student in Kansas State and I'd like to, speak with somebody who might be able to share more about your hiring process or your hiring timeline. You can always follow it up with an email. That's a great thing to do. Make sure before you get off the phone, if there's an email that you can follow up with, that you ask for it. Or who's the best person for me to reach? Can I have their email? People appreciate that. People appreciate the pleasant ask. So be kind, be polite on the phone, and don't be scared of the phone. It's a tool. It's a good thing. Some basics on etiquette. When we're in class on Zoom and when we're with our coworkers or family members or friends, we can let our hair down a little bit and be more relaxed. But when we're setting up for an interview or a professional conversation in the virtual context, we need to be aware of a couple things. First, you want to make sure that you have appropriate audio and visual. Make sure you're in a naturally daylit space or that you have lighting on your face, not coming from behind you. Make sure that your picture is clear and not fuzzy. If it's fuzzy, we can do some tech support on that. Your audio, you want to make sure it's clear. Something you can do is test yourself. If you want to do a Zoom call with yourself, you can record it, play it back for yourself, make sure everything sounds clear. You can also do a mock interview. They're not that scary with a friend and or a parent. And then punctuality, make sure that you arrive ahead of schedule. 5 minutes early is on time. On time is late. Especially in the virtual context, nobody wants to be sitting there staring at themselves, waiting for somebody to come on. So be early, be punctual. That extra 5 minutes, extra couple minutes is always a good thing. It's extra conversation that you get to have with somebody on the other end of the call. So use it to your advantage. The advantages of searching for a job virtually and remote is that you get to have a little help on the side in the form of your notes with you. Sometimes if I'm doing a big client presentation, I've got like Post-its like all around my computer screen, just of little reminders of things I want to make sure I say, things I want to make sure I ask. Those kinds of things I wouldn't be doing if I was in person. I wouldn't have a bunch of Post-its on my pad of paper in front of me. So use those things to your advantage. Have your notes at the ready. Make sure your material is engaging. Make sure that you know, you're not flying too fast and you're not you know, going through things too slowly. And then, like I said again, practice your Q&A for your interview conversations. Practice with your friends, practice with Professor Dudek, practice with your other professors and teachers. Sometimes it just helps to kind of hash out those kinds of traditional and typical answers before spitting it out for the first time to a potential employer. Some tips about the conversation. I want to make sure that we express that when we're virtual or on a phone call, use your body language, and where, you know, if camera's off or if you're on the phone, make sure you're using your voice, your vocal inflection. These are subliminal cues that are critical in communication. I used to joke at the beginning of the pandemic that being on Zoom meetings all day, while it was convenient that I didn't have to commute to meetings, it's exhausting. It's exhausting because our brains are working overtime to pick up on all those little cues, who's paying attention, who's not, where their eyes are going, how to keep them engaged. It's exhausting. So be engaged and active with your body language. You can still use your hands while you're on the camera. You know, use your vocal inflection to create optimism and happiness in your conversations. Smile when you talk. It's the old adage. Another tip and trick that sometimes people often forget, especially when you're in a scary interview session with people you've never met before, make sure you know their names at the beginning of the conversation. They'll probably introduce themselves, but make sure that you remember, okay, that's John, that's Mary, that's Michelle. Especially if you're in a panel interview situation where there may be more than one person speaking with you, it's important to remember their names and then to use their names in conversation. Not over the top, at minimum, at the beginning of your conversation, thanks Mary, Joe, and Bill for having me, you know, and then at the end of the conversation, thank you for having me. Using people's names creates subliminal trust, just like we talked about with the body language cues. Using people's names creates a sense of familiarity and trust. So use those kind of baseline tactics at the very minimum. And another thing to think about, if you're not a natural speaker, if you're not a natural extrovert, it's okay, and you don't need to feel nervous if there's breaks or pauses in the conversation. That is a good thing, and that is natural. We don't constantly speak in presentation mode like I'm doing now. We have breaks in conversation for a reason. It helps our brains process information, so don't dwell if there's a couple second delay after you share something. Let that pause, you know, come to its fruition, and then, you know, if the pause gets longer than a couple seconds, you can follow it up with an open-ended question or say something like, "Did I make sense? Did I speak clearly about that? What are your thoughts?" So those are some good things to remember. Oh, and another thing on that note, before I go to the next slide, it's okay to acknowledge mishaps that happen, like my dog in the background just now. So you can laugh about it. Nobody expects you to be a robot, but I expect him to be a robot, so he's got to cool it. So finally, we're talking about goal planning as we kind of wrap up, and then I'll open it up for questions for you guys. But so if you're not already a goal planner, it's a good thing. It's a good habit to adopt. So I'd encourage you to start doing it. Start making just lists or post-it notes of goals. And in terms of the job hunt, it could be as broad or as specific as you want. If you're looking for, I really want to, have an experience at a firm that does a certain type of project type, or, I really just want to land an internship that uses Revit so I can build my Revit skills, or, my rendering skills, or my construction document skills. It could be as broad or specific as you want. It's okay to have a couple goal statements. And then from there, that can help you navigate the list of targeted employers that you're looking for, so that you're not, applying willy-nilly for opportunities that may not be suited for you or that you may not like in the long run. After creating that kind of targeted list, you want to make sure to reach out and actually speak with somebody, as opposed to that passive approach where you're just submitting a resume or an application on their website. Try and get a hold of somebody. LinkedIn, again, is a great tool for that. If you've just applied for a job somewhere, go to that LinkedIn page, look at their employees, find their design director or somebody in their leadership, and shoot them a message. Say, hey, I just submitted my application for you guys. I've enjoyed, learning more about your team members on LinkedIn, and really love the work that you're doing. There's no harm in that. There's no rules here. You can be a nice and kind professional student. So I encourage you to do that. It will never land wrong if you give somebody a compliment. And then with that too, the art of the follow-up is critical. If you've just submitted a resume or an application online, or if you've just had coffee with somebody talking about a potential job opportunity, and especially after the interview, no matter how brief it may have been, follow up, shoot them an email. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it again. Make sure you're sending something of value that can add to the conversation you just had, whether it's a copy of your portfolio. It could be a snapshot or a teaser of the project you're working on right now that's applicable to what they do. Give a little color to it and help them see a more dynamic individual. Some other things to do, you can check in. If you haven't heard from them, it's okay to check in. That's part of the follow-up. Give it a week or two and make sure you understand their timeline for hiring. Check in with the professionals that you've met today from the symposium. Shoot them an email. Hey, just thought it would be, I'm working on a project and you seem to be involved in these types of, this type of work. Can I get your feedback on this project or this part of my project? Those kinds of things really help build your network and also help people remember you. So in that flood of talent that's out there, it's helpful. I'm so sorry, guys. It's helpful for you to stand out in that way. And there's no harm. Everybody loves to help and everybody loves to get a compliment. So just some tips there as well of things you might not have thought about to do. Those are things that helped me in my job search as I really, sorry, cut it out. As something that's kind of the way I got the attention of some of the employers that I interviewed with, just sharing my work and sharing my thoughts and my interests relative to what they were doing. So there's no rules there. Keep your optimism up, keep your mind open, And with that, I'm going to land on one of my favorite quotes is making the world your oyster. But if anybody has any questions, I know I kind of took a bit of an overview there, but if anybody has any questions or specific experiences.
Rachel, Alexis asked, and Alexis, hopefully you're on here.
Yes.
I'm a little confused. When you have an interview and they ask if you have any questions, what kind of questions do you like to hear?
That's a great question. The worst thing you can do is say, nope, I don't have any questions. It's always good to have at least one or two questions in your pocket that you saved for last, because this question will 100% always come up. The employer wants to give you the last word to showcase any last highlights of your person or interests that you want. It's also a good opportunity for you to get an action item out of that meeting. So even something as simple as, when do you expect to have made a final decision on your hiring process for this role? Or what are the next steps? Is there anything else you'd like to see from me? Those are things that kind of keep it open-ended and get you an action item from that you can then include in your follow-up. Otherwise, it's great to also share, something I wanted to share with you additionally is that I'm involved in XYZ Club. I'd really like to know if your firm has a sustainability committee or kind of those extraneous questions that help them understand a little bit about who you are besides the applicant that they see on that resume. So it's an opportunity to share about you and also to get some action items. Hope that helps.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions?
Is everybody here in the job market right now or looking forward to it?
I think there's a lot of first years and
okay.
few second years, which is good to see.
Okay. Something that came up this morning, Professor Dudek, that I think I should rehash too is earlier on our board call, we were talking about this environment that we're entering now and in the next probably 3 years or so, where we're likely going to see a lot of hybrid working, in person in the office and remote. It's totally fair for you guys to ask that as early as you'd like in the interview process. What does this role look like? Is this an in-person role or a remote role? Let the employer kind of answer how they're tackling that. They may not know. They may want it to be a hybrid role. But those are things to make sure that you're aware of going forward. And in the case of the next few years, a lot of these employers will hire remote talent. So the world is even more so your oyster. You don't necessarily have to move to New York City and, be broke all the time to work in New York City. So that's something that you can have to your advantage right now as well. So keep those things in mind and don't be afraid to ask those questions. It's a two-way street.
Anybody else have questions? I like your idea about starting LinkedIn early.
Yeah.
Get in.
I do, to be honest, Professor Dudek, I see really only a handful of students using it, but the ones that I see, I know their name. I know what they're working on, just like I do, I know what my cousin did on vacation last weekend. I know what this student is working on in school. And I'm not even hiring right now, but I could be able to recommend them to somebody that is. So, being present, being out there, there's a huge advantage to that.
So Jenny asked, do you think a virtual internship give you a good understanding of the everyday job? Have you been
Um,
offered a virtual internship, Jenny?
I've just seen like a lot of virtual internships and like that's not something I necessarily want to do. So I've kind of been like trying to get an in-person internship, but I've applied to like 30 places, so still looking.
I think it's, I'm glad to hear that, but I think it could be different depending on the company. One thing you'd probably want to ask them if it's virtual, what opportunities would I have to engage with the team? What are some of your company culture practices and mentorship practices that I could be involved in to learn from the expertise on your team? I think that's completely valid and will probably show them your willingness to be involved in their organization and not just to be on the sidelines. But I think it's totally fair to ask those questions, or what are the ways that I can get involved with your team outside of project work? If I'm virtual, how can I be engaged in those things? Because they may have some people in the office that are in person, and you may not be engaged in that unless you ask.
Another question, if Riley asked, if we do start a LinkedIn, do we need to have professional headshots for our profile pictures?
No, but it is also not hard to take a good headshot with an iPhone 12. So use that portrait mode on your phones, guys. That's stuff that didn't exist when I was in school. I actually stood outside of Justin Hall and made somebody take a picture of me in front of the brick because it was the only flat background I could find in natural daylight on campus. And that's what I used. And it worked fine. It's, probably don't want to use a picture of you guys at the frat parties or something, but be smart about it. Make sure that you have a good professional outfit, that you look alive, and that you have some good daylighting on your face, and that's really all you need.
All right. Anybody else? Questions?
And if you need more resources on LinkedIn, connect with your professors on LinkedIn, connect with me and the other professionals that are engaged today, and see what we're doing.
All right, Rachel, thank you for joining us, and thank you for serving on the advisory board. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for bearing with me and my crazy dog this morning, guys. It was good to see all your faces.
All right, see you guys later.